Jack.org Grenfell chapter with Marissa and Gaia presenting. We will keep all the questions to the end, and the question portion will not be recorded. The video will be cropped to only include the presentation, so no cameras or anything else will be shown, and these will be shared on CMHI's social media pages at the end of the year. Marissa, thank you for being here. Gaia, you as well. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. So thank you so much for being here. So my name is Marissa Taylor. I am the treasurer and the secretary of the Jack.org chapter here at Grenfell. I'm just going to introduce the couple of us that weren't able to be here today. So Mary Feltham is the lead, and Miranda is the Psych Society liaison. So she goes back and forth between Jack.org and the Psychology Society on campus. Gaia, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gaia. I'm the social media representative for Jack.org Grenfell chapter. I've been in this role for the past 3 years now, and unfortunately, I'll be graduating after this, so this is my last ever time.
Yeah, same here for me. I actually graduate this year, so this will be my last year. I've been involved for 2 years now. We actually all graduate, so Mary will be the only one left. So the Jack.org is a group of youth in which we're trying to advocate for mental health and make a difference through different events and organizations. So I will go to the next slide.
So what is Jack.org? Jack.org was founded by Eric Wendler and Sandra Hangington in response to their son's loss, and their son's name was Jack. Our main priority is to bring awareness and help people get the help that they need and help people realize the importance of these really hard issues and advocate for health, like good mental health practices.
Do you have anything else you want to add, Guy, or do you want me to take over?
You can take over if you want.
So a little bit more I wanted to add to this. So like a lot of young people in Canada, Jack didn't know how to reach out for help and often struggled in silence. So Jack.org is actually Canada's only charity training and empowering young leaders to revolutionizing mental health. So as we know, suicide is still the leading health-related cause of death for young people in Canada. And things need to change, and we're trying to do everything we can to make movements towards that change. So young leaders help to identify and dismantle any barriers to positive mental health in their communities. So we also give youth mental health resources that can help them to educate themselves about positive mental health. We're working towards a Canada where all young people understand how to take care of their mental health and to help look out for each other along the way. A Canada without shame, where all those who need support can get the help that they need, and we're only just getting started. So what exactly do we do at Grenfell campus? So the Grenfell campus chapter began in 2015, and it continues to be one of hundreds across Canada. There's also one in St. John's. We hold various events to promote positive mental health, and this includes, but it's not limited to, trivia for mental health and addiction, which we recently did the fall, different self-care nights where we have self-care packages, different movie nights. We even hold our own summits, which we're in the process of doing, which I'll talk a bit about after. So we're just a group of youth working to ensure that the society is best prepared to enhance the mental health of youth around campus. Some other things that we do is on certain days, we have stamps for students to come by and put stuff around campus to leave positive messages. And we just want them to know that they aren't alone in anything that they might be facing.
So going off what Marissa just said about the summits that we're planning for, we have these Atlantic and or national summits that we have across Canada, and we have youth-led gatherings bringing together young mental health advocates to learn from each other and make positive change for youth mental health. At these summits, what happens is you participate in workshops, you engage with keynote speakers, work with fellow mental health advocates to foster understanding, connection, and the strength of community. All high school and post-secondary students aged 15 to 24 are eligible to attend these summits, and they're selected based on their commitment to mental health advocacy.
My name is Lisa Chen.
Leilena View.
Rachel Adams.
Sarajit Manchanda.
Christine Sog.
Jayla Gaspy.
Chanda Lincoln. Sarah Donald.
We've built a revolution. When we lost friends, we spoke up. When cuts were made to education, we educated our peers.
I've seen us create communities and platforms where we include everybody in the conversation, no matter who you are.
Now there are more services and support groups available thanks to a growth in technology.
Together, we've raised money for men's mental health and suicide prevention.
We've also improved on our accessibility to online resources for young people in our community.
I actually just recently got accepted to be a crisis responder for Kids Help Phone.
This past year, I helped to develop a training program for emergency department nurses to better care for youth who are experiencing a mental health crisis.
I'm proud to say that despite the current state we're in, it's not stopping us.
We're doing so many good things. But again, there's so much more to do.
Because we understand that there is a power in our numbers. And we know that we can and will make a difference.
I found that mental health lacked a sense of community.
Our current mental health system is overwhelmed.
There still exists in the community a fear and stigma to talk about mental health.
The SAYCW did a survey in 2016, and 1 in 5 students said that they had considered suicide.
We need to reduce the number of suicides and not stop until that number is 0.
Young people need to be involved in making decisions that impact their mental well-being.
We need to improve mental health equity as well, so that support is accessible for all.
That's why 250 of us are still getting together virtually.
The conversation is ongoing and it's loud. It's unignorable.
So rebels, we are not done yet.
So another little thing I wanted to talk about is this thing called brain freeze. I'm not sure if anybody remembers the ALS ice bucket challenge where you had to dump a bucket of cold water over your head. So this is kind of the same idea, but this is raising money for mental health. So this is a fundraiser that Jack.org has to raise money for mental health, which includes putting yourself through freezing cold water. There's several different ways that you can do it. You can raise money as a group. You can do it by yourself. So you can choose to jump into a body of water, such as a lake, the ocean. Back when this was in person, a lot of people would get together in the same area and go into the ocean in their bathing suits, which was quite cold. Or you can either dump a bucket of ice water over your head, much like they do with the ALS challenge. So when you sign up to be a part of this brain freeze, it comes with a meditation challenge for 30 days. It gives you a yoga class and some tips for how not to stay frozen after you dive into the water, and a workshop which seems to be quite inspirational. And I partaked in this past semester, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, the drop in temperature means the return of a chilly tradition along the water.
The plunge raises funds and awareness for Jack.org, a Canadian charity that aims to train and empower young leaders who want to revolutionize mental health.
Today's Brain Freeze Polar Plunge is one of many happening across the country.
pretty amazing to be able to bring people together and celebrate the accomplishments that we've made.
How was it? It was freezing. When you get in there, it's such a shock. You're like, but after that, you're golden.
It is a chilly day in December. How does it feel?
Feel alive.
Team warm up to get our energy level and our heart running before we get in the water.
Are you ready to
The plan was to jump into a frozen lake. The problem is we're actually standing on ice.
That's fresh.
This Jack.org community, I mean, people are running into freezing cold waters right now.
How do you feel?
Cold! People are doing this in the name of youth mental health. It's the excitement, you can just feel it. It's amazing.
And so if this can help, totally worth it. Grade 3, 2021.
Wow. Well done.
This is another thing that we do for fundraising for mental health. This is called Jack Ride. It's a bike ride that raises money for mental health, which is now on its 13th year. It takes place at the Caledon Ski Club, but also offers virtual options for riders nationwide and internationally. There's different routes and options for all skill levels and ages. If biking isn't your thing, you can virtually swim, run, walk, scooter, or literally anything that helps you support youth mental health.
The rain hasn't stopped riders from showing up. In fact, this is the biggest year yet.
My sixth time doing the ride, Martin's third or fourth. Couldn't picture ourselves not doing it.
It's been great. It's 10 in a row.
You know what? Let it be known, rain does not stop Jack.org advocates, because here we are and we're ready to ride. We're talking about mental health. We're having amazing conversations. This is huge.
It's all about attitude, and you just put your nose down, put your head into the wind, and go for it.
You woke up this morning, you checked the weather forecast, you looked at it, and you still showed up. It is phenomenal.
We're very resilient. We don't mind the thunder.
Even in the rain, come on. It's a little bit of rain for a great cause.
And you came here because you knew that we needed you to make more of a difference every day, every year, and to get bigger and to get better.
1,256,187.
sunny day. 2021 virtual Jack Ride.
Super excited to be participating in Jack Ride 2021. Let's go.
People across the country are getting on their bikes to support youth mental health.
We really believe in the mission of Jack.org, especially in a year like this.
It's my first Jack Ride.
Looking forward to a good ride today.
Good morning, we're out riding for Jack.org.
I couldn't be happier to be a part of Jack Ride.
Here we go, Jack Riders.
Get after it. Get after it.
I'm riding to open up conversations about mental health.
To empower youth to break stigmas.
Support one another and revolutionize mental health.
50K into a 100-kilometer ride for Jack Ride 2021.
It's absolutely fantastic to see so many jerseys.
Survival, take down my rival. That's going to be a doozy win going home. If I am beaten, I'm not defeated. I fight back to the top. Ain't backing down, no, we're going big. Ain't stopping now, we get after it. Get after it. Get after it. Light that fire. Get after it. Light that fire. Put it all on the line.
Yeah, Jack Ride.
Give it to roll every time.
Kyle, why are we riding?
Jack Ride.
Yeah.
Get after it.
Shout out to all of our riders.
You guys are absolutely the best.
Keep on riding. Love you, Jack Ride.
So there's also the Be There campaign. So these videos help to explain it a little bit better and show the 5 golden rules. But this basically states that sometimes talking about mental health isn't enough. We actually have to have the knowledge, skills, and the confidence to step up and be there for one another. So Be There, like I mentioned, talks about these golden rules.
When it comes to mental health, we all have good days and bad days. And on our bad days, we just need some extra support. We need someone to be there. Now, being there isn't about fixing someone, although I think it's natural, it is for me, to want to fix the things that our loved ones are going through. That's really not what's helpful. What is helpful is just being there, showing you support them, listening to them. Now, you'll know if someone you love is struggling if you see changes in their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that are intense, long-lasting, and having a negative impact. And if someone you love is struggling, there are 5 Be There golden rules that you can follow. And they're say what you see, show you care, hear them out, know your role, and then connect to help. Now you can use one or more of these rules in whatever way makes sense. Be There is going to teach you how to use them in everyday situations.
It can be intimidating the first time that you talk to someone about their mental health. You might be worried that they might not take it well, or they might get defensive or angry. The most important thing to remember is to not judge and not make assumptions, and the way that we do this is by saying what you see. So by this I mean, I had an experience where I had a friend who noticed that I was struggling with my mental health, and they said, "Hey Charlotte, I noticed you haven't been coming out with our friends as often as you usually do, and that's not really like you. I want to check in because I care about you. How are you doing?" And that really opened the door for me to have that conversation. Even if, you ask that question and the person isn't quite ready to talk yet, you're at least making that space for them to come forward when they're ready. And if they are angry or if they do get defensive, just remember that it's not a personal thing. It's just scary to talk about your mental health sometimes, and they might not be ready.
Letting someone know you care is a great way to be there for them. But don't just say you care, show you care. If your friend misses class, send them your notes to help them out. Or if they're anxious about walking alone at night, offer to walk with them. But don't assume you know what they need. Sometimes you can just ask them, "How can I support you better?" Showing you care builds trust in a relationship, and it helps them get through their day-to-day.
You've started the conversation, now you need to hear them out. but listening is a skill and it is not always easy. You can start by asking open-ended questions, just to get them talking, and be patient. Also, make room for moments of silence. They're valid too. Sometimes, offering advices or even sharing about your own personal experiences can be helpful. Just make sure to keep the conversation about them. And if you don't know what to say, it is okay to just listen.
So as we're being there for someone, it's really important that we know our role. We're not this person's counselor, or their psychiatrist, or their teacher. We're just this person's friend, or sibling, or teammate, just someone who cares about this person. And as such, we should just be there to support this person throughout the conversation. But while we're doing this, we want to make sure that we're setting boundaries so that we're not having any negative impacts on the friendship, and that we're not crossing any lines. We also want to make sure that we're aware of our biases so that they're not having any impacts on the conversation as well. You also want to make sure that throughout the conversation, wherever you can, you are mentioning other resources that this person can use just so that they can get any help that they need and so that you can just be there to support that person.
So your friend's struggling with mental health and you want to be there for them. The most important step you can take is to connect them to help. There are plenty of resources both online and in your community that can provide professional mental health services. Remember, it's not always easy to access these services. There can be barriers such as cost and distance, as well as stigma and discrimination. The most important thing you can do is to follow up, although if you do see any serious issues, it's great to encourage them to get help as soon as possible.
So we also do these things called jack.org the talks. These mental health presentations are delivered by youth to youth. These youth speakers are trained to use the power of personal stories and personal experiences, and as well as mental health education to inspire, engage, educate, and equip young people to look out for themselves and their peers. These Jack Talks have been in person, but since the pandemic, they have been virtual. The classroom edition to share and get the conversation started, and the personal edition for anyone to educate themselves about mental health. 80% of Jack Talk audience members report having a better understanding of mental health following one of these talks.
So you can request one of these talks at any time that you want. So a lot of people might bring it into the classroom, like a lot of psychology professors might say, you know, like this would be really good to bring in, so they can request one and it'll come up and it'll be shown for the classroom. But you can also book it to watch it by yourself in your own personal time.
My name is Cheyenne.
And I'm Julia. Jack.org is a Canadian charity that works with young leaders to change the way we think about mental health. I had gone to a new school with a new peer group, new expectations, like you name it, it was different. But before long, it overwhelmed me. And I was constantly anxious, even when I couldn't pinpoint what was upsetting me. The sight of my school made me feel sick, and I hated the weekends because the weekends were just that much closer to another Monday. But I didn't know what to do about it because I'd never had that mental health talk with anyone. To me, mental health was something I knew about because, you know, I watched the news, I read books and stuff, but I never really internalized what it meant for me and how to take care of myself. And it got to the point where I just didn't know how I was going to be able to keep going. And so, thankfully, I did start to reach out. I didn't have like an Oprah-worthy aha moment, like the clouds didn't part and it was nothing special like that. I just kind of came to the realization that this wasn't something I could see myself dealing with on my own for who knows how long. And so I started to reach out. I talked a bit to my parents about what was going on, to a couple of guidance counselors at school, and a few of my close friends. And I was so relieved to have people who I knew cared about me understand a bit about what I was going through. And then even better, and this often happens when we can take that step to reach out, we were able to make a plan to change things for the better. I used to think back in high school that if I asked for help, that meant I was weak. But now I know when I ask for help, it means I'm strong, and it means that I get to be healthy, and that's what's ultimately the most important. And so I hope by sharing my story, I've inspired you to have those conversations, make them normal conversations, really ask people how they're doing and care about the answer. Because if we do that, we're going to end up having a lot less people who struggle in silence, and that is our ultimate goal. We actually need to acknowledge that mental health and mental illness are two separate conversations. The difference is everyone has mental health, as Cheyenne was just talking about. Mental illnesses are actually specific clusters of symptoms in your thoughts and feelings and behaviors that can be diagnosed by a professional. And I know for me, in my school, stigma kind of reared its head in that if someone missed a day of class, for example, and you asked where they were, it was really easy to say, oh, I had a stomach flu, I was sick, I was at home. That was totally fine. What people felt that they couldn't say was, oh, I was feeling really sad the other day and I just couldn't even get out of bed. And that's where that stigma exists, where we find it's okay often to talk about our physical health, but our mental health doesn't get that same treatment.
A lot of times when we're struggling with our mental health, it can really take a toll on other areas of our life. So maybe you aren't hanging out with your friends as much anymore, or you're skipping class, or you're not talking to your family. And so when you notice these kinds of things, it is a pretty big indication that you might want to reach out, to get some help.
All right, so first things first, changes in what people do. So this might be something like someone's no longer participating in one of their favorite extracurriculars. So someone's just like not showing up to soccer practice anymore. Maybe they're not showing up to class anymore. And maybe they're taking on more risky behaviors like more substance abuse or even self-harm. I know for me, my behavior changed in that instead of wanting to hang out with my friends after class or with my family on the weekends, I was just always alone in my room. And that was something that was really abnormal for me, a change in my behavior that was a red flag that I was struggling.
For me, really struggling with mental health started in high school during my transition from high school to university. So it kind of wasn't a bit in grade 11, but really kind of ramped up in grade 12, where there was a lot of stresses I was kind of dealing with. So, there's the stress of what you want to study and, basically do for the rest of your life. What school you want to go to, how that's going to affect your friendships. I was also dealing with a lot of issues at home. My parents were going through a divorce at that time, and my sister, who was really my biggest support, had just left to go to med school the year before, so I was really the only one at home now taking the brunt of all this, and also dealing with all these things at school. So I really didn't know how to deal with the stress that was kind of coming to me. And so by the time I got to around February of my first year at university, I pretty much stopped caring about anything. Whether it was my school, whether it was my friends, my family, or my future. And so I really didn't care about my own life. Now, it only really got better when one of my friends from high school reached out to me and just shot me a message and was like, hey, how's it going? I haven't heard from you in a while. And normally when my friends would message me and I didn't want to talk, I just respond with something pretty easy to say, like, you just respond with a happy face or something like that, and then it's like, okay, they're happy, it's done. But this friend really wanted to get a bit deeper, didn't want to leave it at surface level. And so they started asking questions about my life, and they said, oh, how's your sister? She knew a bit about my family stuff, so she asked about that. How's, your family doing? How's that stuff affecting you? Those kinds of things. And basically, she noticed these kinds of changes in how I was acting, how I was feeling, based on how our relationship had gotten so much worse over the years. And started asking a bit more, and eventually I started opening up a bit more. And as I started talking to her, I learned something really important, which was that the problems I was facing in my life weren't problems that had no solution and no one else knew how to deal with. Whether you're connecting yourself to help or connecting to a friend, there's a lot of different things you can use. Talking to a teacher is something that I think works pretty well. It obviously depends on your relationship with them. I'm not going to force anything on you, whoever you're comfortable with, but oftentimes they kind of know what's going on with your life. They know the school dynamic. But if not, you have your guidance counselors at school. You have your parents you can talk to. And there's also other centers in the community. So I know for me, talking to my parents really wasn't an option for me, so I called Kids Help Phone a lot. I know the word kids is there, and when I was in grade 12, grade 11, I was like, I'm not a kid, I'm an adult. I can call an adult help phone. But Kids Help Phone is literally for students, kids from any age up till I think 19 is their recommended, but you can call them way past that as well. And it's a great thing. It's 24/7. It's completely anonymous, and you can call them about literally everything.
Maybe you need to work on your time management or your goal setting. If you have your time management more in order, maybe your assignments aren't piling up to give you those stresses that cause you to go over to that stress, struggling, crisis side of the spectrum. Might also look like having some healthier routines in your life. So getting enough sleep, eating well. We want every single one of you to join the movement. There are so many ways to get involved and start being an advocate for mental health, and there's literally something that works for everyone. So it could even just be starting more conversations about mental health, but it could be volunteering with an organization in the community or a club at school. It could be taking a stand on social media or even writing a letter to a government representative. These are all steps that everyone can take that are going to allow us to grow our network and have our voices be heard even louder, because it takes all of us. And then, really awesome as well, our JACK chapters. So these are student groups in schools, usually about 5 to 15 students, who are working to make sure mental health is an everyday conversation.
So one thing that I wanted to finish up our presentation with was how you can get involved with jack.org. So you can get involved with any of the fundraisers like I mentioned, or you can create your own while getting the support from jack.org. If you decided that, you know what, bike riding isn't my thing and throwing water over me isn't my thing, and you're like, you know what, I think I want to take a walk across Newfoundland, for example, which some people have done for different things, then you can count that as a fundraiser and you can get other individuals to join you along the way. So you can also engage in the Atlantic and National Summits, which are really fun to go to. I have been to the Atlantic one now virtually, and I will be joining the National one in March. And they're just a lot of fun, and you get to talk with a lot of like-minded individuals who have the same passions and the same goals that you do. And you get to bounce ideas off of each other about how you can better improve mental health, which is wonderful. So you, like I said, you get to talk with all these different advocates, and you can take back everything that you're told and bring it into your own community. They also do these breakout rooms where you get to talk about how you would advocate for mental health, and a lot of the speakers that come forward at these summits are really wonderful individuals, and it's really inspirational to be able to listen to them. So you can book Jack Talks and listen to other youth talk about mental health, and you can also become a Jack Talk speaker yourself. I'm in the process of becoming a Jack Talk speaker just because I want to be able to talk to youth about mental health, just because I've been so involved with it for the past several years. So you can actually even start your own Jack chapter. You don't necessarily have to join one that's already existing. You can, but you can start your own in your own community, or if you want to start one based off, like we have one for Grenfell and there's one for St. John's, but if like a certain organization wants to create a Jack chapter, they're more than welcome to. And you actually can take the jump to educate yourself and make a difference when it comes to mental health. So all these things like the Be There campaign, all the different things you learn about the golden rules, that's just stuff that you can take forward to improve the way that you think about mental health and to help promote more positive mental health.
To have so many youth start to talk about mental health advocacy and what we can do and what we're capable of when we really dig down deep into our souls, what we can achieve when we work together with a common goal, is mind-blowing. It's astounding, you know. It's about time that this is happening.
Us as the North, we need to start funding those services that are holistic for the person, where they look at our spirit, our body, our mind. As an Indigenous person, we heal with our culture.
It's having those people that have that lived experience, that are from the North, that know about the residential school systems that happen up here, that know about, you know, the homelessness that we deal with, the mental health issues that are specific to the North.
People will go and make policy and stuff with just a thought in their mind without actually going out and experiencing and seeing what needs to be done.
We are able to talk to the government, we're able to talk to change makers, we're able to advocate for these services.
Un des obstacles pour ma communauté LGBTQ+ du Québec, c'est encore et toujours les obstacles au niveau de l'inclusivité, de la peur du jugement et de la non-accessibilité à plusieurs services. Il va falloir que ça change pour qu'on puisse offrir des services qui sont réellement bienfaisants.
Si moi je prenais l'initiative puis que j'en parlais à mes amis, bien, par la suite, comme par effet boule de neige, eux aussi ils allaient amener un changement dans la société par rapport à la santé mentale. Donc c'était vraiment personnel et vraiment comme volontaire de ma part de faire ces changements-là, ces choix-là.
Being Atlantic Canadian is, I mean, having compassion for your neighbors, looking out for each other.
So we're kind of having this generational gap of knowledge and people are being left in the dark. So by having these discussions and inviting all of these people to the table, it's how we can start combating that issue.
From my perspective, just black males don't have the conversations enough and don't know where to go to. So self-identity is so important to me. Like, we're desperately in need of mental health, like resources and having those tough conversations. Being your best self and specifically seeing my brothers like become their best self, that's super important to me.
I think that in the prairies, to improve, we need to increase funding and increase recruitment, which means internships, job fairs, pushing young people to go to university programs.
We're forgetting all of these surrounding rural communities, and they are just as important, if not more important, because they don't have the same ease of access. You wouldn't make somebody from a small town drive 3, 4, 5 hours to reach a hospital, so why do we do that with our mental health care?
Mental health and suicide affects my community and kind of my people and in my indigeneity. When you lose someone, you never, like, that gut-wrenching feeling never ever leaves. And despite how like dark and gut-wrenching all of that is, you want to ensure it doesn't happen again.
We can offer resources, but if that person we're offering these resources to doesn't feel like we're helping them, we failed.
Here in BC, I would love to see more resources given to community-driven gatherings around the mental health conversation to kind of normalize that.
I think if we want to start a conversation, if we want to break the silence, the first step is acknowledging that sure, everyone has those feelings, but that doesn't mean that they're trivial. It means that every person has worth and every person's conversation needs to be heard.
It just starts with personal invitation. I think it starts with just reaching out a hand to someone that you might not usually, and slowly starting to close that divide between the two sides. And it's not something that is going to happen overnight, but I think slowly it is possible.
Being that one to voice your opinion and to start the need to advocate for more resources in the areas you're in. We need to see the wave progress. The wave just doesn't stop out in the ocean. It needs to come down to the shoreline too.